Enemies of a state. How to avoid trespass on your trust and survive baby mama drama. By King Solomon David Shofar. Dedication. This sacred scroll is lovingly and lawfully dedicated to the House of Bars and Righteous Branches Assembly and Divine Yanefet 247 for their unwavering commitment to education and training in divine order, to honor Blossom, whose kindness, counsel, and steady hand helped guide this vessel along its journey, and most importantly, to the beneficiaries and future blossoms of the Hebrew house homestead. Shalom, Nashan, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Israel, Judah, Legacy, Journey, and Clarity, Blessing, and future heirs, whose inheritance is not of man's making, but of covenant, blood, and lawful stewardship under the Most High. Children are a heritage from the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. Psalms 127, verse 3. Chapter 1. When love breaches the covenant. How feelings became filings and passion became paperwork. The parable of Consuelo. Once upon a sunrise, before I knew what jurisdiction meant, before I learned that every I do might one day become you owe. There was Consuelo. She was beautiful, bold, and bilingual, both affection and accusation. Together, we built dreams, but not definitions. We spoke of love, but not law. We danced in covenant, less comfort, forgetting that every embrace writes a record in heaven, and every agreement, spoken or silent, creates a contract somewhere on earth. At first, our union seemed blessed. Then came the paperwork of passion, a birth certificate, a social security number, and the silent transfer of guardianship from creation to corporation. I didn't know it then, but every signature was a sermon, and every unchecked box a confession. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. The breach that broke more than hearts. When love leaves the covenant, what remains is confusion. One morning I opened a letter stamped state of and realized the kingdom I thought I ruled had been quietly probated. My children, my blessing, was reclassified as a minor ward, and I, the father, was suddenly rebranded as non-custodial. You see, a covenant is an estate, but an affair is an expense. When Consuelo and I parted ways, I didn't know that I was stepping into a courtroom disguised as a counseling session. She brought her pain. I brought my paperwork. The court brought their own jurisdiction. They asked if I understood my rights. I smiled, for I knew I had something better standing. But alas, at that time, I did not yet know how to use it. Of adultery and administration. In Scripture, adultery is more than lust. It is mixing jurisdictions. When a man of covenant joins with a woman or system not under the same law, the result is confusion of property. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Exodus chapter 20, verse 14. This commandment is not just marital, it's administrative. The commitment to commit adultery is to commingle what is holy with what is profane. To sign your heir into a foreign registry is to give Caesar joint custody of your seed. Consuelo didn't see it that way, neither did I at first. We were in love, and love doesn't read the fine print. But love without law is lust, and emotion without order is trespass. So when the child was born, heaven rejoiced and the state recorded. Two realms celebrated the same event, but only one claimed ownership. The wisdom of separation. I learned then that purity is not prudish, it's protection. Flee fornication. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18. Was not about shame, but about sovereignty. For every ungoverned passion leads to an ungoverned process, and every misplaced affection births paperwork you can't unsign. The ancient fathers knew this. To lay with one outside covenant was to plant seed in strange soil. And what grows in strange soil often belongs to strange hands. That's why the Most High commanded separation, not out of cruelty, but preservation. A man's name, lineage, and estate are divine trust and must not be diluted by unlawful unions. Be ye not unequally yoked. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. Consuelo's complaint in heaven's humor. When Consuelo filed her first petition, she claimed the best interest of the child. But heaven whispered, "What about the best interest of the covenant?" Her lawyer called me absent. The judge called me liable. But I called upon a higher court, the court of the Most High. And that's when things began to shift. Not instantly, not magically, but internally. Because once a man governs himself, no paper can govern him. So I appeared not as a defendant, but as a trustee, not as all caps, but as Solomon D. Shofar, the living man, in divine trust. And at that moment, their questions changed. Their tones softened. The system built to feed on fear found no nourishment in me. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 1. From bed to bench to blessing. Looking back, I laugh. For the same woman who once called me babe now called me respondent. The same judge who once scolded me for not paying tribute now respected me for knowing standing. And the same system that once sought to garnish my wages now had to recognize my estate. This is the humor of heaven. When you act with wisdom, even your enemies must call you sir. When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 7. Moral of the scroll: Consuelo was never the villain. She was the vessel through which wisdom spoke. Her frustration became my revelation, and our dispute became the doorway through which I entered stewardship. For I learned that the first trust to protect is not the one written on parchment, but the one written on the heart. And if a man cannot govern his passions, he cannot govern an estate. He that ruleth his spirit is better than he that taketh a city. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32. So ends the first chapter of this scroll, a testament that even broken love can birth lawful wisdom, and that sometimes the woman you called problem was heaven's paralegal in disguise.
This Hebrew house